So let's go ahead with the other properties which are available in the cookies. And the next one is, how do I limit the cookie to a specific domain? You may have, for example, yesterday I was talking about one specific application that has different folders, and you want to restrict them, restrict the cookies for a specific folder. But in some other situations, you may have different subdomains within a given domain. For example, you may have this is the main domain that the company has. For example, you can think of having something like www.microsoft.com. Okay. Then you also have the subdomain like msdn.microsoft.com. You can have technet.microsoft.com. These are subdomain within the Microsoft. Now, when you have this kind of scenario, and if you want to restrict the cookies for a specific domain, for example, if I set a cookie for the MSDN, I don't want it to be received by the TechNet or the other one. If you have that kind of thing, you can set the cookie for a specific domain. For example, I assume that in this place, you may have instead of this, you may have something like within this area, instead of this MSA, you may have something like mca.amit.edu, or you may also have a domain like mda. And the remaining part is same as the previous one, amit.ac.in. So if I want to restrict the cookies for a specific domain, I can do that. The way in which I do is, I have to set within the cookie, I have to set the domain for the given cookie. So domain equal to specify the domain. In that case, whenever the client comes back to that specific domain, the cookie is sent only to that domain, not the other one. So you may be within the Aloysius site itself, but there is a subdomain within the Aloysius site. In that case, the cookie is sent only to that specific subdomain. The way in which we do that is, you just specify the domain. Okay, I won't show the demo of that. Let me go to the next one. The next thing is, how do I read the cookies? It's very simple way to read the cookie. First of all, if you have set a cookie, you first find out whether there is a cookie. Remember, cookies has to be stored at the client side, and the client has to submit it back to the server. So whenever you send the cookie to the client side, the browser stores it and the browser sends it back. Now you cannot expect every browser to send back the cookies to you. So before you do anything with the cookie, whether it is reading or whether you are trying to do something with the cookie, just find out whether you already have a cookie. So if you don't have a cookie, you will be trying to manipulate a null object. So, and definitely when you try to manipulate a null object, you get an exception errors. To avoid all those things, you just find out whether the cookie that you are interested in is available within the cookies collection of the request. So you first find out whether the cookies collection of the request has the specified cookie. If it is so, then you can think of doing anything. Now the next one is, how do I read the cookie? Read the value of the cookie. Within the specified cookie, just give the dot value. That will read the value back from your cookie. This is the straightforward way of doing it. If you are again from the old school, the other way of doing it is first read the cookie altogether, and from the cookie you read the values out of it. So let's do that thing. I will create a new project. I'm going to add a new item into this. So I have a page there. Mission is a bit slow because of I'm encoding a video. Today's video does not encode it. I don't know what is the problem with that. I will give the code here, and let's first create a cookie. Okay, so you can say page dot is postback. You can do that thing because the page object is directly available to you. This itself is a page. So either you can do this one, or you can omit this one and just say is postback. It's one and the same because you are already in the page. So whether you exclusively say that page object, you are already in the page object. So either you say this way, or you can say page, not this capital page. Okay, one and the same. These two are one and the same. So you can say that. Now I'm going to say if I'm not in the postback, so if it is not the postback, I'm going to create a cookie. So I'm going to say http cookie, say ck equal to new http cookie, and then and there I'm going to say username, and let's say some value. Okay, I've created a cookie. This is I'm doing it in the old school style. Then you have to say response dot cookie collections. Then I'm going to say add ck. So this is the usual way in which you are doing. Okay. So this will send a cookie. So if it is a postback, read it. So how do I read that cookie? So first of all, I have to find out whether the cookie already exists. So I'm going to say http cookie c is equal to request dot cookies. So this is the collection. Now within this cookie, you can specify which cookie you want to read. Now in my case, I have set the name as username as the name of my cookie. Make it as username. So I'm going to read that cookie. Then I'm going to find out whether ck is not equal to null. Yeah. Okay. So if it is not, now this I'm in C now. It is proper. ck is there in this location. I'm reading it now. Now when I'm reading it back, I want to find out whether the cookie exists. Now if there is no cookie, it will return a null value. So if it is not null, then only I can think of reading it. So I will put a label here because I have to put two more things there. One is button and a label. So I'm going to just put a label here, and I'm going to give it a ID. Initially I won't put anything. ID equal to L1, let's say. Then button, some text, ID equal to B1. Okay. Then I will go here and I'm going to just put that value in the cookie here. So L1 dot text equal to value in the inside the cookie is plus I want to read the value. I'm going to say C dot value. So that is the one I'm reading it. So if I'm reading the cookie and if the cookie exists, I just display the value. I'm going to give a 5 on that and let's see how it goes now. So you are just reading it and displaying it back. So it's going to start a web browser and the problem is because of that. It is encoding and it goes at a higher priority. What's it called? I don't know why it does not encoded yesterday. Okay, I got the button here. So when I click on it, I must be able to get the value. So this is how it goes. If I get the Firefox, I will show you the other one. So now the next question is, what if you have more than one cookie, how are you going to read if you have more than one cookie in the stored in the machine? So I will go here and let me assume that I have 4 cookies here with the name C1, CK1 and CK1, CK2 and CK2, and I'm going to add CK1 okay, altogether there are the same thing. What I've done here is so now I think you can able to see. What I've done here is I'm creating the last one. I've already added. I think I have already added the things there. Control KD. Okay. So I have 3 cookies now with the 3 different names there. So I want to, and I have added it to the response. Now I want to read all the cookies one after the other. So how am I going to do it? You're already familiar with this. You can use a for loop, and you can say for the request dot cookies dot count. Now this will tell you how many cookies are there in the header. So header may contain more than one cookie. So I want to know how many cookies are there, and based on that I want to take some action. Okay, so let's go here, and I'm doing it. So this is the first one. I'm going to the cookie collection, and I'm going to the count here to find out how many cookies are there, and based on that I want to take the action. Now here I'm going to say, instead of this, I'm going to say the index. So I'm reading the ith cookie, in other words. So for I is equal to 0 up to the length, I'm reading the ith cookie from this collection. Then I will, if the ith cookie exists, I want to specify the value. First of all, I'm going to say name of the cookie. Name of the cookie is how am I going to get the name? So C is the cookie. Remember, I've got the ith cookie and I'm calling it as C. C dot, I'm going to say name. So look at here what I'm doing. I'm using the for loop to go through all the collection of cookies. I extract this ith cookie out of it. Then I store it in a object of type cookie. If the cookie exists, that means if it is not null, remember if the cookie does not exist, I am going to get the value as index of I is equal to null. So if it is not null, because it's an object reference, and you know very well, if the object reference is not pointing to an only object, the default value is null. If it's not its default value, this is my label in my web page. So what I'm going to say is the name of it is C is the ith cookie. Ith cookie dot this. You can do this one, or you can straight away you can do other way around. It is one and the same. You can, instead of this, you can write it this way also. That is the request dot cookies. That is the ith cookies dot value. But to avoid the confusion, what I've done is I've placed it separately, and I'm doing it. It is one and the same. You can straight away use the same one. The code becomes slightly more cluttered if you start doing it. So let's give it a try. Now I think I will have the only last one. If you notice here, I am not adding my label. I should have used the label.text plus that. I am not concatenating. So it will show you only the last cookie value, not the other one. It's all right, but I hope you got the idea there, because I am running a bit at a reduced speed. It becomes a bit difficult for me to quickly switch between the things there. So I will say only the last cookie this time. So the other ones are not there because I have not concatenated the previous cookies. So I should have used l1.text plus the one. Now I will say all the four. It will come in a straight line, but it's all right. And I have not concatenated the values of the label. That's why it is not showing me everything. So I press the, hopefully it has taken that. Yes, one is the same. Hope you got the idea there. I don't want to waste too much of time. Straightforward with the next one. What if you have a subcase within the cookie? Now the reading of the subcase is one and the same. You read the main cookie, and within that you try to read the subkey values. It will not make much difference. If you know how to read a cookie, then within the cookie you are reading the subkey values. Now this is the shortcut way of doing it. If you want to do it in a slightly more complicated way, I won't be showing you any demo because it is taking too much of time for it to start executing something on the Visual Studio. So let's assume that I have the collection of cookies there. So I have a lot of cookies in the request. So I will go through the cookies for I is equal to 0 to the cookies count. Then I extract the ith cookie from the request. Ignore this thing, assume that it's actually a string builder. I'm not using string. The reason is strings are non-mutable, and if you try to concatenate two strings, it is always a separate string that is created. Instead of that, we can use a string builder. String builder allows us to concatenate two strings, so they are mutable. That's the reason most of the time any example that you see on the strings are usually based on the string builder, because it allows us to make changes to the string without rebuilding the entire object. Whereas if you try to do it with the string, whenever you concatenate two strings, a separate object is created, and you know very well creating a separate object requires you to spend extra time and extra effort to get the reference of the object from the heap and use it. So instead of that, many of them make use of this string builder. Now what is being done is I get the cookie, I get the name of the cookies, then I check whether the cookie that I have extracted, that is the ith cookie that I have extracted, does it have any keys? What is the meaning of that is, does it has any subkeys inside it? How to find out that is, within the cookie, just call has keys. Has keys will return true if the cookies has subkeys inside it, otherwise it will return false. If there is a subkey inside it, then you know very well the cookies will contain, the subkeys are there inside the value collection. Go to this cookie, this is the cookie you have extracted, that is the A cookie. Go to the cookie, go to its values. Remember, values is the collection of all the subkeys within the cookie. Then go to its count. So it will give you the count of subkeys within the given cookie. So from the cookie, you find out how many subkeys are there. Take those subkeys, then one after the other you start reading it. So how to get the individual values? From the cookie that you have extracted, go to cookie dot values of j. I counter is already being used up, so I'm using the j counter. Get the j value. If you want to get the name, remember subkey is name value pair. This will give you the value. If you want to know what is the name that you have given for the subkey, then it is not the values, it is all keys. All keys is again a collection of the names of subkeys. This is values of subkeys. So you use them, and the rest part is just to make it appear in a neat formatted way. And finally I add it to the label here at the end. So this is to put a break and to make it appear neat. I have done that thing. It's not really required. Okay. So that is how we read this subcase. Again, there is a very complicated but rarely used option. Now, in the yesterday I told you that the collection is actually derived from name value enumeration. So it is, the subcase are actually stored as a collection. Now you can use that base class, that is name value collection, then go through it. This is very rarely used option, but you can still think of doing it. Now what is being done is, we are not manipulating the cookie object itself. What you do is, these name value pairs are actually derived from a collection called as name value collection, and it is available under system.collection under specialized name value collection. That class is available there. You can use that class. So this is the name that is given to the object of that class. Then from the request, go to the cookie and get values. Now what this particular thing will do is, when you say values, it will return a collection of type name value collection. So this, when you say values, it will return a collection of this type. Use that collection, and within the collection you go through the different elements. So that is the thing. You get the collection, full collection. From the collection you go to the individual cookies. In other words, it is same as you get the entire array from the object, get the entire array and go through the individual element of the array. So this is, in this case, it's not a array as such, it's actually a collection. Collection need not be in any, there is no need that a collection must have an order. Unlike your arrays, array has an order for A of I, A of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. You have an order in which the elements are arranged. Whereas when it comes to the collection, there need not be any order in which the elements are placed. But they are part of the, as it is, they have all the elements are there in the collection. But there is a way in which you can traverse through this, and again, in the Java you might have learnt about it, how to use a parser that goes into the collection, goes through the individual element within the collection, extracts one at a time and use it. So whenever you are using the for loop, the new variant of the for loop, that is for each, what you do is you allow that parser, one object, to go into the collection. It will visit all the items within the collection, and it will extract one object out of that collection and give it to you, and you can use it. So that's what you are doing whenever you write this for each and some statement. So the for each is allowing one of the object to go into the collection, and as you go through the for loop, it will pick up one object out of it and give it to you. Then you can do anything with that object. Okay. So that is the next one. The next part is, how do I give an expiration time for the cookie? Again, it is not possible to delete a cookie. You don't have an option called as cookie.delete, directly you can't do it. The way in which you have to do it is, you need to specify the expiration time so that the browser will delete the cookie. And the way in which you do this is, every cookie has an expiry time. You set the expiry time something which is before the current time, that is in the past time. For example, you can set the expiration time 1 day before, or 10 minutes before, or 1 minute before the current time. When you send this cookie back to the client side, the client browser will detect the cookie and it will check the cookie with its time, expiry time. The expiry time has already elapsed, it will automatically delete it. It is not directly possible for you to delete the cookie. So set the cookie to that thing. Okay. Again, if when the cookie arrives at the client at the server side, you can detect what is the time on that cookie, what's the expiration time on the cookie. If you try to detect it, you will get a 0 value. It's not possible to find out how much time is left out for the given cookie. Okay. Now let's say how I can modify the cookie. I think that there is a code. I missed that code altogether. Again, I can type the code. It is taking too much of time on the Visual Studio. Now the next one is, how do you modify the cookie? If you have already set a cookie at the client side, and if you want to modify that cookie, you can't get it like an object. What you have to do is, you have to recreate a new cookie with the same value but with the modified content, send it back to the client. So when you send a cookie with the same value, with the same name but different value, and when the client receives it, if it finds that a cookie with the same name exists, it will override the existing cookie with the new cookie. So this is how you are modifying it. You are not taking something, you are not taking some value of the cookie and doing something. Yet, if you find that I want to change the value of a cookie, read the cookie, recreate a new cookie with the same name but with some different values inside it, send it back to the client. The client will automatically update it. So let's look at the same scenario in a counter. So I want to set the counter. As the user comes back again and again, I want to increase the value of the counter. Now first what I do is I will check whether there is a cookie with the name counter. If it is not there, I set the counter value as 0. Then I put that counter into the this counter value into the cookie, and I set a expiry date of 1. So that's the one. I put an expiry date and send it. Next time when the cookie comes back, I will not have the null value. What I do is I read the cookie, I read the value of the cookie, convert it into integer, increase its value by something, I again put it back to the same collection and I send it back. So this is how it goes. Okay. What if you want to modify the subcase? If you want to modify the subcase, then you go to the subcase, make changes to the subcase. So it's simple as that. You whichever value, either you modify the first value or the subkey value, go to that subkey value and modify it. However, there is a small variation when you try to delete the subkey values. The small variation when it comes, it is directly possible to remove a subkey from it. I'll show you that thing. Now here, this is an example for deleting a cookie. To delete a cookie, you read a cookie and you notice here the cookie expiration value is set to -1. So I set the cookie value to -1 to say that it is 1 day before today. When this cookie goes to the client side, client knows that the cookie has already expired, will automatically delete it from the client side. Now if you have a subkeys to be deleted, you want to remove the subkey, there is a way in which you can do it. You can directly do that thing. Read the cookie, go to the subkey that you want to remove it. From the value collection, call this remove, specify the name of the subkey that you want to remove it. So values.remove, name of the subkey, it will remove that subkey. Remember, read the cookie back, delete the subkey, send it back to the client again. So this is what is being performed. Okay, reading, I think I've already shown you about that reading. Again, reading subkey, I think I've shown you about that. I wanted to show you a demo, but it's taking too much of time from my on my machine. This is a small example that shows you how to check whether the client really accepts a cookie or not. This is usually required because if your logic is based on the cookie itself, suppose you use a cookie for some reason or other in your application, and you want to be very sure that the client really accepts a cookie, and if you feel that the client is not accepting a cookie, you want to change your strategy and use something else. In that case, you would like to know whether the client really accepts a cookie or not. You can't directly send a cookie and expect the client to store the value, because if the client is not storing the value, none of the cookies will come back to you and your entire application logic will fail. So the first thing before you try to use a cookie is just to verify whether the cookie is accepted by the client. How to achieve this? You send a test cookie to the client side, read it back, check whether the test cookie comes back. If it comes back, that means client is accepting it. If it is not coming back, then change your strategy. Either use some session variable or any type of variable to store the information. So this is what is being done. This is a simple example that tries to do it. Now what happens is there is a page called as accept cookies. Okay. Now, I want to test within this page, I want to test whether the client accepts the cookie or not. So I create a cookie in this page. I then send a redirect to the some other page. So I create a cookie, send it to the client, and for the client, I tell the client automatically to redirect back to some other page. So you create a cookie, send it to the client, but tell the client once you receive the cookie, go to some other page. So that's the redirect page. Once it goes to that page, once it activates that page will check whether the client has accepted the cookie or not. If the client has accepted, it will again send a redirect back to your page. So it is going in two-way round. You create a page, put a cookie, send that information to the client, and ask the client visit some other page. This is done automatically using a redirect script. The user is not clicking on anything. So user visits your page, you put a cookie into your page, send it to the client, and ask the client go to some other page. Automatically it is redirected to that page. That page checks whether the client has accepted the cookie or not. If based on the result, once it checks whether the client has accepted or rejected or done something with the cookie, it will again redirect the client back to the same page. This is the technique that is being performed. So let's look at how this thing is performed here. So first of all, I check whether the client has what is the result of the client. Now this is at the initial stage. You really don't know whether the client is accepting or not. So the result within the query string will be null. Isn't that? You really don't know what the status of the client. So you create a test cookie and you put a value OK inside that test cookie. Okay. Then you set a expiry date, maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes, or you put any, or you don't put it, it will be there as a session cookie. Okay. After that, you send a redirect. Now remember, this redirect, you are sending it to a page, the test page. The test page must know which is the page that want to check the existence of the cookie. So what you do is, within the redirect script, you tell the return address. So from my page, I'm sending it to the test page. The test page must know where it must come back. So that information is put in the redirect. So even though I am telling the client to go to a page, but along with that, I also send a redirect information back to the same page. So that is done over here. If you notice here, I'm saying response dot redirect. Then I tell the client, go to this test for cookies. So I tell the client, I'm giving you the cookie. Take this cookie. Either you accept it or don't accept it. That's your problem. But just go to the other page. So that is what I'm saying. But to the other page, I am putting a query string here saying where to come back. So where is the return address? For the test page, I am telling where it must come back. Which, in other words, which is the page that is interested in verifying the existence of the cookies. Okay. So this redirect contains the current URL. That is the existing page URL. You send the existing page URL as a query string. Remember, you are not putting it as a cookie because you really don't know whether the client is accepting the cookie or not. If you put it inside a cookie and send it, if the client is not accepting the cookie, that cookie won't be reaching the other side. So this part is done as a redirect. Now let's look at what the test page is doing. The test page first gets the redirect address. Now what is this redirect address? It's the query string that is sent by the first page. It reads that and it stores it in the string variable. Then it tries to read that test cookie. So the test cookie is set here. It tries to read that test cookie. If the test cookie is there, well and good. If the test cookie is not, its answer is yes or no based on whether the test cookie has reached the test page or not. The test page is received it says yes, otherwise it says no. Now this information must be sent back to the page that was querying it. So what it does, the end is it redirects it back to the page which originated everything. So in other words, it sends it back to this place from where you are sending. So it comes back to the same page, that is the redirect page. Okay, but the answer must be told to the other side whether it has accepted or not. This answer, yes or no, is now queried and sent along with it. This answer is again sent as a query string. And before that, if it has accepted the cookie, it will delete that cookie because that cookie is not required. It's just a dummy cookie that has been sent. It just deletes that cookie by setting its address to 1. Now when it redirects it back, so you send a cookie to the client takes that thing to the test page tests it, and it's now sets it back to your page. How it is doing is, again it is asking the client, go back to the same page. When you come back to the same page, this time the accept cookie, that this value, accept cookie will be either yes or no. Something will be there because test page has verified the existence of the cookie or not. So it will not be null for the second time. Then whatever answer that the test query has, that is accept cookie has, that is shown on the label. Now, in other words, you get back the result whether the client is accepting it or not. If the client is not accepting, you take the second, you change your strategy. The client has accepted the cookie. You use the cookies to store your information. So this is how you are doing it. So this is the simple scenario how you are using it. So you take a page here and you create a cookie inside this page. Send it to the client side. Okay. Now tell the client that don't do anything with the page. Ask the client for a redirect. So this is what I am telling the client. You are redirect the request. You are telling the client go to the other page. So once you receive the cookie, directly go to the other page. You are the client at the client. You don't have to press refresh or anything. It is 303 code in the HTML for a redirect request. So it goes to the other page which is there in the next slide. That is what I have shown you. In the next slide, what you are verifying is whether this cookie that was sent to the client, is it coming here? So this is what you are testing. If it is yes or no, based on that, along with the answer, you send it back to the same client and tell the client, now don't do anything with the page, go back to the original page that sent everything back to you. So this answer is sent back now and it is redirected back to the same site. So what the client will do is it will get a cookie, automatically redirects you to some other page, gets a request from the other, result from the other side, goes back to the same page. But in this process, it will tell you whether the cookie is accepted or not. If it is not accepted, and you can either tell the client, if you don't have the other strategy, you can tell the client, if you want us to proceed, you please enable the cookie. Sometimes you get this message on your browsers when you visit an email site or any other site. It just says you cannot proceed without the cookies. Please accept the cookies, and they will tell you the settings. You can test the browser type. Again, in the request, you can test the browser type. Based on that, you can give a help message telling the user, if it's an Internet Explorer, how to enable the cookies. If it's a Mozilla, how to enable the cookies. It's a Chrome, how to enable the cookies. So you can do that thing. Let's look at some of the advantages of the cookies. One of the greatest advantage of the cookies is cookies can last for a very long time in the client side. If the client is not doing anything, it will be there in the client side even after the session. So you can store the values for a very long time in the client. If everything goes fine, it is good. Otherwise, some bad. If the client has deleted, you have lost everything. But generally, assuming on a positive side, you can store it for a long time. The next one is whenever you want some default answers from the client side, you can anytime use it. For example, their email ID or some default values. You don't want them to type again and again, so you can just place the cookies inside that and just accept the values directly from the cookies. Also, if you want to know how many times a client is visiting, for example, you really want to know whether it's a regular client. The one person is coming every now and then, is he coming back or is she coming back every time? Then maybe you want to reward them or give some different price list or anything of that time. You can use the cookies. Okay, so cookies is used to manage the sessions. Okay, remember we are not storing the shopping cart inside the cookies, but we use it to identify. Usually the session ID is stored as a cookie, not the other one. Cookie is also used when you want to authorize a user. Whenever you are using the form-based authentication, it's actually your result will be stored inside a cookie. Okay. The other one I think I have already told you, to prevent the user from filling the same content again and again. But remember, please do not store the credit card number or anything in the cookie. It's not a good idea. Password or some secret information, the secured information, you are not supposed to store it inside the cookie because they are plain text. They are directly, if exposed, they could be a problematic. Okay. In tracking the users. So that is, I will stop here. With that, I will switch back to the next one, which is, I'm supposed to cover it. This is taking more than the allotted time. That is with the databases, and you are familiar. There are two ways in which you can use the database. One is in the connected mode. Other one is the disconnected mode. In the connected mode, you have the open connection with the database as long as you are doing anything and everything with the database. So you close the connection to the database only once you have finished processing. That's the connected mode. In the disconnected mode, I have explained this thing. In the disconnected mode, you connect to the database, get what you want from the database, store it locally, disconnect from the database, and use the local copy. Only when you want to update or when you want to the changes to be highlighted in the database, re-establish the connection, send everything back to the database, and then close it. So you are not maintaining the connection for the entire day. You make a connection during the morning session when the user logs in. You go and fetch the data from the database. Then you disconnect it. Maybe at the end of the day, at 5 o'clock, you will re-establish the connection back to the database, send all the updates to the database. Once the data is updated, disconnect from the database. What's the advantage? You are not maintaining a connection with the database for a long time, and you know very well maintaining a connection with the database itself is a very problematic thing, because if you are thinking about the internet-based application, the mobile application, it's very difficult to have a direct connection with the database. Okay. I've talked about this. Let's come back to the ADO.NET again. I've talked about this just to recall what are the things we have already studied. When we talk about the ADO.NET, I've told you it's an intermediary between you and your application and the database. There are two main components in the ADO.NET, and one is the content components, other one is the managed provider components. Now, these content components are the one which actually store the data. They are the one, they store it locally. Either when you receive it from the database, they are the one that store it. One of the heavily used one is the data set. Data set contains data tables. Data tables, along with that, it may contain views also. Both the data tables and views will contain columns and rows collection, and also you can have a relationship between the database. Then this is the one that contains the data. The other one is the managed providers. Now the providers are the one who actually interact with the database to retrieve or they update the data. So they help us to make the connection, get what we want, and send the updates back to the database. So what we have there is the connection object, the command object, data read object, data adapter object. They are all the one that manages your interactions with the database. So there are two different types of components. This figure, you must not forget this particular diagram. This is the one that's the essence of everything in a very sum total. At the extreme right side, you have your application. It could be a Windows form application or your ASP.NET web form application. This is the application that wants to consume the database. At the other side, I have not shown you. Here's the database because it is not shown here because it's not really required. We don't bother about which is the database that is doing storing or doing the updates. It's not really required because we will not interact with the database directly. Instead of that, we will interact with the Edo.NET. Edo.NET is like a translator that translates your commands, your programs into the appropriate Windows command. Now, we have the application that is making use of the data, and we have the database at the other side. In between, we have this Edo.NET, the set of classes that will do the miracles thing, and that is connection to the database, retrieving the data, making the updates. Now, there are two things that you must remember, the two ways in which you can interact. One is the connected and the other one is the disconnected way of using. If you go along this path, along the reader, it is always connected. If you go along this path, it is disconnected. So if you are using adapter, then it is disconnected. If you are using the reader, then it is connected. What is the meaning of saying connected? In order to retrieve the data, you must have a connection with the database, or in order to do anything with the data, you have to have the connection. Whereas, in order to, in the disconnected way, there is no need for you to have the connection with the database. So how it is achieved is using a data set. Now, data set is in-memory representation of the data which is there in the database. So your database may have a lot of data in the table, or multiple tables, or multiple views, or anything of that type. You are representing the same data with the same structure and the same constraint inside your client memory, and this in-memory representation of the data is called as data set. So data set is in-memory representation of that thing. I will just complete this part. Now, both of them require some commands to interact with the database, and the command that you are typing or the command that you want to execute. The commands could be select, insert, update, delete, or anything of that type. The command is solely handled by this command object. Now, the command object on its own cannot go and talk to the database. In order to connect to the database, it has to have a connection established with the database, and that is established, or that is maintained by a separate object that is called as the connection object. The connection object is responsible for maintaining the connection. Command object is responsible for issuing the commands. It could be a SQL command, it could be a stored procedure, or it could be a direct interaction with the tables which are there in the database. So the command object knows how to use the command. The other two are there for either connected or disconnected way of establishing the connection with the database. In the connected way, you are using the reader. Whenever you are using the reader, there must be a continuous connection with the database. Reader, the word itself says, can only read the content. That means it's only one-way flow. From the database, you can just read it. You can't send something back to the database. It's a one-way traffic. So reader will read. In other words, in technical word, reader will stream the data from the database to your application. It's a continuous flow. Whereas the adapter is a two-way connection. It can read, it can write something back to the database. How it establishes that is, when it is reading something from the database, remember your data adapter is not directly interacting with your Windows or ASP application. Whenever the adapter reads something from the database, it fills this data set. That's a local copy. So it goes to the database, gets everything and fills the data set, and it gives that data set to your application. Your application is free to do anything with the data set. Once you have completed all the modification within your data set, you can ask the data adapter and tell the data adapters that I have made all the modification. Now you take this updated data set, send it to the database. So here you have this local copy. That is why it is called as disconnected. Once the data set is filled by the adapter, it will disconnect the connection with the database because it's not really required. Then what you have is your application has the data set, and your application is running, it will make all the modification in the data set. Finally, when everything is over, when you want to update the changes, you just call the data adapter again and tell the data adapter, I have made the modification in the data set, take it and update it to the database. Again, data adapter on its own can't go to the database. It must know which is the command that has to be executed. For example, it could be a insert command, it could be a delete command, it could be an update command. Any command that makes the changes in the database. So this command knows which is the command that needs to be executed, how it needs, the things has to be carried out, because it must know whether you are sending a parameter or directly it is a query string that is being sent there. So this takes care of that everything, and it again uses the connection to re-establish the connection with the database, sends everything to the database and makes the updation. So this is the sum total of all the objects which are there. These are the very essential